Come on, you're late. So I like to start out any kind of training with one simple question. Why am I here? What am I doing? What's my goal, right? Like no matter what you do, every one of us in our jobs or any other training, like these guys do jiu-jitsu. Anybody else train martial arts? I know you do. Anybody else? What do you do? Cool, little stick fighting shit. Anybody else? So, you don't just like show up and like do weird shit, right? There's some specific reason in thought process about what you're doing, and it's the same thing that we're doing here. So that PDF that we sent you, remember that? Who read that PDF? Mary's like, I did. I'm a fucking lawyer.
Every word.
Did you?
Yes.
Every word? What about, so talk about the planning stage. Like you could have like a really good plan that's garbage, or you could have a really good plan based in fallacy, a plan that's based in reality, but then you don't plug the plan in at the right time, right? Make sense? Just imagine this gun that we all carry on us as a sword, right? So my thought is, in the context of using it, I have to be able to have it with me, have it in a usable condition, and then be able to get it out of its sheath or holster to do something with it, period. We're gonna develop in 2 days and pound in some very simplistic systems of how we manage the gun. And by manage, I mean, how are we physically manipulating it? How are we keeping it working? How are we aiming it or not aiming it? Because maybe we can't even see the sights for some of the shooting that we'll do. How are we treating it from the perspective of safety, which is super important. But if safety becomes the highest of important things, we should just take the slides off and whip them in a river, and then the gun's safe. You know what I mean? You see the target line out there? That's the only direction that we're going to be orienting muzzles while we're training, into that berm. Unless we give you a direction that we can use these side berms for something, the only place that we're orienting firearms out here is into that downrange berm. Does that make sense? Say it with me. The only place I'm orienting these muzzles is into the downrange berm. So downrange, uprange, downrange, uprange. If I see muzzles pointed anywhere but that berm and we have to have a talk about it, like something unsafe, and the talk has to happen more than once, then you're done. Because none of you guys are interested in being shot. Go to page 8, will you? Go to page 8. Take a good long look at page 8. None of these people are anybody that I've had anything to do with, but what 2 things had to happen in every one of those pictures?
The muzzle had to be oriented at a body part?
Sure, so the muzzle of the gun was oriented into the flesh, and then somebody or something, right? I don't like to use the concept of they pulled the trigger or somebody did, because clothing could actuate a trigger. Something that you do to modify a gun could cause it to discharge. If we are always mindful of the muzzle direction, no matter what happens, I'm not going to shoot myself. Get what I'm saying? I mean, you might fuck your hearing up, you might shoot a hole in the ceiling of your house, you might fucking shoot the ground, but you're not going to shoot yourself or somebody else if you always are cognizant of the muzzle's orientation. One of the immediate things that we'll talk about as we start manipulating these guns is this concept of me dominating the muzzle at all times. No matter where I'm going in time and space, I have an idea of where this is. Trigger finger. We're not going to place our finger around the trigger guard. If we are in the act of not shooting, I'm consciously not shooting, I'm deciding to not shoot, my trigger finger is going to come high off the trigger guard. Not on or around the trigger guard like so, but high off the trigger. You should be able to see all the way through. And this isn't just because now I know it's all the way out of the way up on the frame. It's because we humans have a phenomenon called interdigit limb response, or sympathetic grasp, some people call it. If you look at your hands, none of us do this when we grip. All of our fingers move together. And there are thousands of instances of people negligently, accidentally discharging a firearm because as they tense up, a finger that's on or around the trigger ends up depressing the trigger, and then the gun functions as designed and shoots a round off. It's not just an afterthought, like, yeah, my finger's not on the trigger. Because if we think about the context now, back to the goal, why do you guys carry a gun? Or why did you buy a gun? Or why are you training with a gun? Why? So to actually use this to shoot another person or maybe an animal, right? It's not, you don't have this thing so you can sit on your couch and admire it. You don't have it to show your buddies. You don't carry it in your pants, having it poke you because it's neat. Like, how many of you would never carry a gun if you knew you didn't have to? I wouldn't fucking carry a gun if I didn't have to. Why would I want a hunk of metal in my pants? Like if the world was some utopia, right? And we just live like Canaan, smoking weed all day and listening to Grateful Dead music. But I have this thing because I might have to shoot somebody. So in that situation, Brian's a school principal. What's in schools? Kids, right? So like if I am, or your own home, unless you live alone, if I've got bad habits and I am doing things where a gun is being pointed and my finger's on the trigger, I'm just creating a situation where bad things happen. 3 concepts: repeatable, reliable, and robust. So the things that we train, we want them to be repeatable, meaning I can repeat it in training, but also under duress if I have to. Like if I could drive in the snow in a parking lot and do fishtails and have fun, that's cool. But if I'm on 90 and my car slides and I freak out and smack into the fucking wall, well, everything I practiced in the parking lot doesn't mean anything. Does that make sense? So I want skills that I can rely on and that I can repeat. So repeatable and reliable are 2 different things. Reliable, I could repeat a shitty grip with my gun as I draw. I can repeat that, but it's not reliable. Nor is it robust, meaning will it stand up to violence? Will it stand up to somebody trying to strip the gun away from me? Will it stand up to me being tired? When you're tired, do you tend to make better decisions or worse decisions?
Worse.
Yeah, as you are scared or you are compressed, or time is compressed because you're trying to make decisions rapidly, do you tend to make better decisions or worse decisions? Worse, right? So we want to develop systems where if I've got this thing in my fucking hand, I know where it's pointing, and I know that I'm not going to discharge it negligently, period. So if you hear one of us scream at you to be heard, not that we're being dicks, get your finger high off the trigger, that's what we're talking about. And if we mind these 2 principles, you'll never shoot yourself or anybody else that shouldn't be shot. Does that make sense? This is kind of like the philosophy of my life. You're exactly the shooter and person that you've trained yourself to be. Not to get philosophical about it, but if we are not being very purposeful, as we pointed out to begin with in our training, then we're just wasting our time. The real purpose of what we're doing here is to enable us practitioners. I feel like we're practicing a martial craft with these guns, no different than if we're striking or wrestling or doing something else. We're not students of Mickey or students of the gun. We're practicing a martial craft, and the purpose is to enable us to more effectively deploy and use that tool for self-rescue. To the best of my knowledge, none of us are going to get called by the president to go fucking on some special mission with our concealed carry gun. Yes? So far as I'm concerned, any of us needing this, it's probably going to be defensive in nature. Even if somebody's attacking the church or the school or whatever and you decide to run in, that's still defensive. You're not like planning some assault on a building, right? Does that make sense? So I want to get really good from that concept, which means I'm always behind the curve. Defense, you're always behind the curve. You're at the fucking restaurant or sitting in the church or minding your own business, and now you need this weapon, right? Does that make sense? So all of the things that we're doing need to support that. Can I get this thing out from under my clothes? Can I not shoot the wrong person? Can I identify who the right person is? Can I maybe change my course of action in this if whatever's happening changes? So that's kind of the thought process. And the deeper that we ingrain good subconscious skills with the tool, and by good subconscious skills, I mean our ability to run the thing, the more of my conscious brain I'm going to have available to deal with whatever problem is in front of me. Make sense? I think a good thing to illustrate that would be driving. All of us, as we begin to drive vehicles, if you remember, and if you've ever taught your child or taught other kids to drive or just new drivers, how'd that feel when you were a kid and you first got in the car? Do you remember like, oh shit, like what all these buttons and knobs do? And your mom or dad or driving instructor said, don't worry about it, hold the wheel, work the pedals, maybe the shifter if it was a standard transmission, right? And you were like, how do I turn don't worry about it, right? Does this make me go left or right? Like which way do I push it? Fast forward a year, and how was that? You're fishtailing, ruining your dad's car, doing burnouts, playing with the radio, flicking cigarette butts out the window. Yeah.
Checking the babes out.
Checking the babes out, yeah. Locking up the emergency brake in your mom's minivan. Definitely did that about 600 times, and I'm not sure how it broke. Right? But then you're not thinking about it anymore. The problem with that is that we get comfortable, and maybe we shouldn't be. Like, you know, kids get comfortable, adults get comfortable driving. How many of you have used your phone while driving? Texted, looked at something in an email? Don't lie. So everybody but you, Chuck? Chuck, you never look at your phone when you're driving? All right, so we're on the same page. We've all fucked around on our phone. How many of you have seen somebody else on their phone while you're driving?
Daily thing.
And then how does it make you feel when you pull up next to somebody on their phone?
Moron.
How, like, no, for real, for us men especially, you dumb motherfucker, right? Look at this fucking asshole. If you got somebody in the car with you, you're like, look at this prick on their fucking phone. And then you, you grab yours, right? Am I lying? It's like you feel objectively that you have the ability to make good choices. Are you filming me right now, Mary? We feel safe doing that. You feel that you can control this car and look at your phone. How many of you have ever been driving and fucking around on your phone and then all of a sudden almost hit a mailbox or rear end somebody? And then how's that go? You throw your phone on the seat next to you like it was a snake that just bit you, and then you're 10 and 2, and then you're like, oh fuck man, that would have been so stupid. Oh, how dumb am I? And then what happens in about 800 feet? Am I lying?
No.
So this concept of being composed, this is something we're going to talk about a bunch when you shouldn't be. I don't want to be around people that treat these things like they treat their cars. I don't, and none of you are Mario Andretti. Anybody have any professional driving experience? I don't. How many of you feel you're a good driver? Every man thinks he can drive, fight, fuck, grill steaks, right? It's true. You're laughing because he probably tells you that he knows how to do all these things. And some of you guys are out of the gate going to have amazing gun handling skills. Cool. If you hear over the course of the couple days me on this whistle, and I say whistle, 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 stop whatever you're doing. Doesn't mean anybody's dead. It just means we got to fix something. Finger straight, dominate your muzzle. You don't need to freak out. Don't need to do anything crazy other than it means everybody stop. Let's figure out whatever's happening. Maybe somebody tripped, maybe somebody's where they shouldn't be. So if you hear whistle, 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 stop. If for some reason you lose control of your gun this weekend, let it fall, let it fall, let it fall, let it fall. So say that with me. If I drop my gun or lose control of it, let it fall, let it fall, let it fall. If you try to catch the gun, there's a good probability that you're going to catch the trigger. Just let it fall. Kanan and I were in Iowa a couple of years ago with a group of guys, lovely men from this gun club, going to dinner, and one of them didn't show up, and we got told that he shot himself accidentally. He went home to change to come to the dinner and decided to clean his gun, pulls the gun out in the garage to do something. He had a classic car out there and he fumbled it, went to catch it, and popped around through his hand. Now his hand stuck like one of those fisting dildos. You know what I mean? One guy's like, we know what's in his closet. Google it later, Mary. Do it on his phone. Todd, if for some reason you lose your footing or you trip, and people definitely have tripped in class, dominate your muzzle, dominate the trigger finger, the same thing I'm already saying. I won't say point it to the berm because you may fall with people in front of you. So always think about what's the area of least negative outcome, the least negative consequences, lowest amount of negative consequences if the gun is pointed at it. I don't know where that might be. So it's incumbent upon you to be conscious of that, yeah? Medical stuff out here. Who's got some medical training? I know Derek does. What's your level of training, Todd?
Stop the bleed.
Stop the bleed, very good. Anybody else? This has got an AED in it. There's oxygen in here. There's a bunch of stuff in here, such as an EpiPen if one of you guys has an allergic reaction, and everything we need to do to control massive bleeding. So if I say go get me that orange box, you see where it is. If for some reason we do have the very terrible outcome of somebody taking a round in them out here, everybody's gonna stop, we're gonna holster, we're gonna say a prayer, and then we're gonna drag that person over that berm and go back to training. I'm just kidding. We'll stop and we'll assess whatever's going on and deal with it. Probability of you dying from a gunshot wound from a pistol is about 20%. So there's over an 80% survivability rate in this region if you've got a trauma center nearby. Being shot in the head, you've got about an 8% survivability rate. So don't shoot yourself in the head. The range here has a good protocol. They can land helicopters and stuff out here, but here's the better thing. Let's do this. Let's not shoot ourselves or anybody else. That seems like a A-plus plan. Hat point target, our preferred mobile target stand. Super lightweight polymer. The designer of this product used to work in the automotive industry, so he knows what he's doing. The polymer is not only super light, but it's super durable, and if it does happen to get shot by an errant round, it won't crack. It just punches a clean hole. We've got good shooters. I actually don't have one that's been shot. He just told me. 3 different locations for different target widths. These are friction fit. And as I said, we've been demoing these for over a year. They work fantastic. So totally sturdy. 1x2 fits in there. If it's windy, breezy, you can either put a weight here, or they supply some long railroad type spikes, landscape spikes. You can just push them right through into the ground, pound them in, whatever you got to do. Works fantastic, super lightweight, and not going to rust, rot, or anything like that. Hat point targets. Damn, cool.